Although you probably don't think much about it, typography is a very important element of design. Through this lesson, you will learn how to define typography and explore some of the technical aspects of the style. Typography can be simply described as the arrangement of text. Designers use typography to communicate a client's message to an audience. They explore the creative possibilities presented by words. It is up to the designer not only to find or create appropriate letter forms, but also to establish the best balance between them. Please take a moment to answer the first question on your worksheet. Why do designers use typography? When it comes to fonts, you've got lots of choices. You could choose Helvetica or Times New Roman. Or how about Georgia Bold or Comic Sans? But before you can make a choice about what font is the best fit for you, your brand, and your designs, you need to understand the different categories. And while there are a number of font categories out there, the two most important categories you need to understand to make informed design decisions are serif and sans serif fonts. Take a moment to answer the questions about this slide. What are fonts? And what are the two main types of fonts? Let's take a deep dive into serif versus sans serif fonts to help you figure out which category is the best fit for you and your designs. First things first, what exactly is the difference between serif versus sans serif fonts? As their name suggests, the main difference between these two typefaces is the presence or absence of serifs within the letters. A serif is a decorative line or taper added to the beginning and or end of a letter's stem, which creates a small horizontal and vertical plane within a word. They are easier to read and are often used in body copy to make reading easier and faster. Some of the most commonly used serif fonts include Times New Roman, Garamond, Baskerville, Georgia, and Courier New. Without tails, sans serif fonts are made up of simple, clean lines that are the same width throughout. They are often used for headlines where you want to draw the reader's attention and slow the reading. Some of the most popular sans serif fonts on the block include Arial, Helvetica, Proxima Nova, Futura, and Calibri. Generally speaking, serif fonts are more traditional, while sans serif fonts have a more modern feel, but there are exceptions to every rule. And although the rule of thumb is that sans serif equals modern and serif equals traditional, they can also be explored to break design stereotypes. So, depending on how you use your fonts, you can absolutely create a modern look using serif fonts, or a more traditional feel with sans serif fonts. Reference your worksheet to write down a little information about types of fonts. First, you will describe a serif font. Next, you will describe a sans serif font. And finally, what is the difference between a serif and sans serif font? Relationships of type. When a graphic designer uses type, they often use more than one font in a project. Those relationships can be the following. Concordant, where the designer uses only one type. Conflicting, where the designer uses two fonts that are very similar but not the same. And finally, contrasting, where the designer uses two types that are extremely different. Take a moment to reference your worksheet and write down the differences between these three relationship types. Type size and weight. Type size is measured from top of ascender to bottom of descender. The baseline is where the letters sit. Descenders, letters that drop below the baseline. X height, the height of the lowercase letters. Ascenders, letters that go above X height. Take a moment to look at the diagram pictured on the right. Now, reference your worksheet and answer the 5 questions about type size and weight. Kerning and tracking. Kerning is the space between two pairs of letters. Tracking is the adjustment of spacing of large sections of type. Take a moment and reference your worksheet to answer what is kerning, what is tracking, and what is the difference between kerning and tracking. Still a little unsure of the difference between kerning and tracking? No worries. On this slide, you'll participate in an activity to see how accurate you are at kerning. Please visit the website listed on the slide. You'll have 10 attempts to try your skills. On your worksheet, please write your final score out of the 10 activities practiced. Alignment and leading. A design with poor alignment is a little like a poorly organized desk. If you've ever had a workspace covered in clutter, you know it can be. Documents that should go together are nowhere near each other. Nothing's where you expect it to be, and the whole thing is just plain unattractive to look at. Chances are you've seen graphic design examples that give you a similar feeling. When the principles of alignment aren't properly used, it makes marketing collateral look disorganized, haphazard, and visually illogical. Alignment is vitally important in print graphic design because it allows you to arrange elements in a way that matches how people naturally scan the page. It helps balance your image so that it's visually appealing, and it creates a visual connection between related elements. When dealing with alignment theory, most people immediately think of the horizontal placement of text on a page. This is only a single aspect of the alignment principles, but it's undeniably an important one, since you'll be dealing with it anytime you work with text. There are 4 common types of alignment when dealing with text placement: center, flush left, flush right, and justified. In print design, flush left is generally considered the strongest, safest choice and is the most common orientation. When working with graphic design, you should never place anything arbitrarily. Using the principles of alignment helps bind and unify all of your elements together into a strong, cohesive structure. Leading is defined as the space between lines. Take a look at the examples on the right-hand side of this slide. In the first example, you'll notice that the sentence "leading is the space between lines" is much closer together. In the second example, you'll see that the same 3 sentences have a bigger space in between each line. This is what is considered leading. Simply put, the space between lines. Line length is the length of the line of type. If you use a larger font, the line length should be longer to accommodate the same number of words. Line length controls readability. The longer the line length, the harder it is for the reader to find the beginning of the line. Extremely short line lengths can be very disruptive for the reader to comprehend what they are reading because their eye is constantly going back and forth. Please be sure to go back through your worksheet and make sure that all of the questions have been answered about typography. Our next project will be a typography portrait. In order to ensure your success with the project, it is extremely important that you understand the basics of typography. If you have any questions, please feel free to watch this lesson again or ask me for any questions that you may have.